At this point, it'll be a good idea to go show you some of the options we have available to us during a Zoom meeting. So we've covered some of the settings. You can see the view here. This will allow us to see, I guess you can call it Brady Bunch format, right? All the different participants lined up in little squares. There's also another way to view this, which is speaker view. And in speaker view, you have the little boxes up across the top. You'll see the different participants there, and then you'll see the person speaking down here. Now, in this case, there are only two people in the meeting. So we have, it's this account and then our test student. So Zoom will pretty much keep it like this, so you can still see an image of yourself here, but test student would be prominent, and hopefully that student would have video on in real life. But if there are multiple speakers, multiple participants in these classes, you'd see all them in these rectangles up along the top, and then whoever's speaking will appear larger down here. So the view options tend to be very good. Full screen would do pretty much the same thing, full screen mode, except I can now drag this list around, and I can set this up however I like. So I can see all of the participants, the current one, or minimize this completely. All right, and if I go back to view, I can choose these different views. So, play around with the views a little bit when you have a chance and just figure out what works best for you. And let's see, somehow there's a way to get that back up there, but actually kind of like it the way it is, so I'm going to leave it alone. And this may be actually a new feature because I don't remember being able to size that before, so that's very nice. All right, down at the bottom, security is what are the participants allowed to do, and if you don't want them chatting, you can turn that off. If you don't want them to rename themselves, if you want to make sure everybody stays muted and cannot speak, you could remove that the ability to unmute themselves. All right. The waiting room is a very good feature to use. There have been instances where people hack into some of these the meetings, the Zoom meetings. If you have a waiting room, nobody can actually get into the live meeting without somebody, you or somebody else delegated for that job, letting them in. Most likely it would be you doing that. I tend not to use that, and so far I haven't had any incidents of anything bad happening. It's extremely rare from what I've read that it happens, but it is a good security measure to use. I don't always trust my ability to focus on too many things all at the same time during a class, and I'm afraid I'd leave somebody in the waiting room if somebody has to leave and come back or is late to class. So it's a good idea to use that, but definitely ask the other students to keep an eye on it and let you know if somebody's there in the waiting room. So those are a few of the things you can do with Zoom. So security, participants is a list of the participants, and you have the view here of the participants. Here you just have this list, and there are things you can do. So test student, suppose we'll unmute this, and test student is making a lot of noise, there's background noise, whatever it is, you can go into participants and choose mute for that student. There are more options. You can start a chat with that student. If you have to leave and you have a guest speaker, say, you can make that guest speaker the host, and the person would then have access to a lot of these different settings. You can rename a student, and we'll say, all right, so not sure why you would want to rename a student. They can usually do that themselves, but you can do that. Do you want to allow the student to record local files or different settings here? So do you want to remove the student altogether from the chat? You can do that as well. So that's what you can do with the participants list. The chat is pretty much like any other online chat. You can have a message to everyone, and then everybody sees that message, or you can post a message just to one particular student. Right? And then that student could respond back to your message. Right? So this would just work like a regular chat forum. And share screen we'll come back to. Polls we'll come back to. We've covered starting and pausing the recording. Breakout rooms are very useful. We'll come back to those as well. Reactions, if somebody says something, you don't want to interrupt them, but you want to say that, good job or whatever it is, you can post that reaction there. The support link, you shouldn't need that. And then apps, this is a brand new feature as well. And as of now, there are no apps that we're using. So that should be a really good overview of these tools. So we're going to come back and cover the more detailed tools in the next session.